Hey there, welcome back to Mr. News Art Class. It's wonderful to see your smiling faces today. If you watched my previous portrait video, you learned how to create what we call construction lines. And construction lines are simply a basis on which you build a face. In this video, I'll show you how to change your construction lines into actual facial features. We'll be using all of the proportions that we talked about in the last video, so if you haven't seen that yet, there's a link in the description and also here on your screen. And I'm going to take it slow, step by step, so if you need to pause your video at any point, feel free. And if I'm ever going too slow for you, you can just jump ahead to whatever part you need. If you have any questions about any specific parts of the face or different styles, just leave them in the comments below and I'll try to address every question you have. Now, let's figure out how we can add some actual drawing on here. I'm going to lower the opacity of these two layers so that it's almost like what would happen if you drew lightly with a pencil. And then I'm going to change the color of my little drawing tool here to black so we can see a nice difference. And I'll start drawing. First things first, how do we draw eyes? I always like to start with the eyes. And if you've got a circle, you can make another circle inside of it and another circle, or dot in this case, inside of that. Let me zoom in and look at this up close. That right there that I just drew is not what an eyeball looks like. Well, I say that. It is what an eyeball looks like. It is not what an eye on a face looks like. If you pluck the eyeball out of the face, it'll look like that. But nobody ever does that. And it'd be kind of gross if you did. Instead, we have eyelids that cover part of the eye. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the opacity of this again. Just as if I had drawn it with a pencil lightly. And then I'm going to come in and on top of it here, I'm going to draw the anatomy of an eye. So normally there's a tear duct right on the inside corner of the eye, nice little round tear duct. And then the upper eyelid curves up and over the iris. This is the iris, the colored part of the eye. And then the bottom eyelid curves and covers up just barely a part of that iris. So the iris, you don't end up seeing the whole thing. Instead, this part down here is covered up by an eyelid. And then you'd have the pupil, that's the black part of the eye. Now I could very quickly here get a nice blue eye here. I know nobody's eyes are really this color of blue, but this is just to give you the idea. So that's kind of the kind of thing we're thinking, but we're not going to color yet. Instead, we want to focus on the lines. Now, why did I start with this whole circle? Because this circle is very important. The top of this circle is going to encompass the eyebrows, or it's going to be where the eyebrows rest on top of. So the eyebrow is going to have its peak right there at the top of that circle. Now, most people's eyebrows are thicker towards the inside of the eye and thinner as they go out towards the outside of the eye. And some people have very pronounced eyelashes. But if you start to draw a million eyelashes, it starts to look a bit much. So what I typically do when I'm drawing eyes is I simplify things and just have 2 or 3. Of course, even that is not always necessary, especially if you want it to look more masculine. You can just completely leave out the eyelashes. Even though boys and men do have eyelashes, you don't have to draw them. You could leave them out completely. But I do like to have just a little bit of eyelash in there. Then another thing that can be interesting is to add a little bit of flare at the end of your eyebrows. Some people even have like really big flares up at the front of their eyebrows in the corner. So there's lots that you can do with eyebrows to make the face look more individualized. One last little thing about the eye, there is a crease. It kind of goes up, flattens off, and then curves around the eye. And that's just a little crease above the upper eyelid. And the same underneath. Sometimes it's just a little crease over here or just a little crease under there. Sometimes both. Sometimes a crease all the way across. Then, when you put it on that face, it begins to look like a realistic eye. And you can do exactly the same thing on the other side. It's important to note that the little tear ducts are always on the inside of the eyes. Remember, again, the upper eyelid goes up over the iris, and the bottom eyelid usually covers the bottom part of that iris just a little bit. Now, do those eyes look exactly the same? I'll give you a trick. It doesn't matter. They don't have to. So I'm just going to focus on just one eye here, because one thing that we saw when we looked at the elderly gentleman was that the 2 eyes were different. And a lot of people, this is the number one thing that my students often freak out about when they're drawing a person is, I made the eyes different. This eye is too big and that eye is too small. But it is very important for us to remember, nobody's 2 eyes look exactly the same. Yes, I probably should make this one a little bit larger on the iris. That's probably all the correction I need. It's still not perfect, doesn't need to be. This eye right here is smaller. This eye is bigger. It's not that big a deal. When you're looking at it as just the 2 eyes, it can be a big deal. But we're going to have the whole face on here. Now, how did we figure out where to put the nose? We came straight down from the inside corners of the eyes to the bottom of the cranium. And that's where we made the parentheses. That's the start of making a nose. But then inside that, we need 2 little ovals for the 2 little nostrils. And then we need the tip of the nose between those 2. You could go and draw the bridge of the nose all the way up to between the eyes. And you could come in here and draw the top of the tip of the nose. And you could come in here and wrap this around. You could do all that detail, but most of it is completely not necessary. What I like to do is have one side come up just a little higher than the other. And then on that same side, make a little notch for the top of the nose. This gives the barest hint that there should be a nose bridge there, but when you look at an actual person's face, you don't see a line going up the center of their face like that. You see it more like that. Now, let's go back and look at this. How closely did I get it? See how close I got that to the placement of the construction? And let's remember, how do we figure out where to put these lips? The first thing we do is we measure the space from here to here, from the tip of the nose to the tip of the chin, and we put a line halfway across. Then we measure the space from the tip of the nose to the line we just made, and we put a line halfway across. And then we come straight down from the, we can make a line for the center of the lips, but we need to know how far across to make it. It should come straight down from the center of the eyes. So I made that one just about right on the right side of the face, Needs to be a little bit longer on the left side. There we go. Now, how do we turn that into a mouth? First step is to make this into a U shape instead of a straight line. The top lip always has a dip right in the middle. And then we curve from the end of that line, the end of that curve, to the tip of the lips, in the corner of the lips. And then on the bottom, we don't want to go like that. That curve comes out first. We want it to come in first and then down. A lot of people just make one straight curve like that, and that could be okay, but most people's lips come in a little before they go down. Now, a lot of people ask me when they see this, how do you make it look like he's smiling? This guy looks like he's frowning. Well, all you do, you don't curve the whole mouth. You just curve the corners of those lips up. And I don't think I did enough on the left side here, but just a tiny bit of curving the corners of those lips up. It makes that person look a lot happier, doesn't it? Now, ears. Remember that we said they come out of the head at the eye line and at the nose line. That's where they come out of the head. So I don't want it to come out of the head here and then go up to that eye line. I want it to come out of the head at the eye line and go up for that earlobe. And then I want it to have an earlobe at the bottom and come into the head at the same place as the tip of the nose. Ears, just like eyes, folks freak out about them all the time, about them not being right. They're not the same. I made this ear too big and this ear doesn't look right at the bottom. It doesn't look the same as this one. What did I do wrong? Nothing. If we go back and we look at a person, look at his ears. This ear is not shaped the same as this ear. Look at those. They're not the same shape. So don't freak out about it. It's going to be fine. What about the details on the inside of the ear? Some people just go and just make a mess. I find it's good to make sort of a question marky shape, but without the dot at the bottom. And then there's usually a little bit of a triangle inside the ear at the top that kind of points down and out. And then at the bottom of this question marky shape, it kind of comes back up, almost like it mirrors the shape of the ear itself. And that's just a simplistic view. There's usually more extra lines too, but most are not necessary. For the other side, we do the same thing, but a backwards question mark that curves up at the bottom. And then there's that triangle again. Again, we could add some little extra doodads, and you know what? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think I made those little question marky shapes too small. I think I left the bottom earlobes too big. But you know what? As a learning exercise, this is just fine. We're not trying to make it perfect here. We're just trying to get the idea of how to do it. Now that we have all the different parts of the face, now we need to get the hair and then the outline. So the hair is one of the most difficult things because everybody's hair is different. If we look at this guy, he's got really closely cropped hair. If we were just drawing the outline of his hair, he's got really closely cropped hair that just stays right on his scalp. So short, there is no worry about it at all. Real easy. But if we're trying to draw this lady's hair, my goodness, we've got all this stuff going on and this stuff. And then we've got some hair coming in front of the ears. And we got all these little stray strands that go every which way. Oh my gosh, there's so many. And then we got the hair that we see here under the ears that kind of takes on this shape. And then we see this little area here, and all these little lines that if I was trying to trace this woman's hair, it would take me forever. And then you'd still see these little bits of the ear underneath, and these earrings, and all these little details that we got to figure out. My goodness. And that's not even the whole head. Look, we got this side here. Uh-oh, we got little strands coming this way. Oh, goodness. Oh, we got little strands coming that go behind her cheek and come out. Oh, my gosh. How in the world am I supposed to make all of this hair? You're not. The best thing to do is to get the simplistic parts. Now, this is a 3/4 view. It's not a full frontal view. But let's get the simple hairline of where the hair is coming out of the head. And this would be the cranium. And let's lower the opacity on that, create a new layer, and I guess before we hide that face, we should also draw in the jaw. So we got the basic person there. How do we handle all that crazy hair? The best way to handle it is to not handle all of it and to just pick the most important bits. Most importantly, she had some really thin strands that came this way. And we can connect all that together. We did see a bit of her ear. I made that ear in totally the wrong place. Let's do the ear outline here. There. So we've got that. All right. Most of her hair went behind her ear and came down this way and went even behind her neck, because her neck came like this. And then we did see some other strands that came up above, covering part of her ear. But here we see her ear. We saw her earring. We saw the little lines inside of her ear. But the important thing is, look, for the hair itself, all I did was get these big, long, simple shapes. She had some sort of wavy hair, so I made my shapes sort of wavy. There's a part between the left side and right side of her hair. And you know what? I'll go ahead and make this the way that it was in the actual picture. It came behind her glasses. It came a little further out, actually. Behind her glasses, and then curved back under in front of her face. And we saw something like that. Yeah, now it's more like it. Give more volume. And that's actually very, very important. Because what I did really wrong here is I had it cropped too close to the cranium. Yes, in this picture, her cranium is right here, is the back of her cranium, the top of her head. But her hair has more volume than that. So what I should have done here is make the part come further back above and beyond the cranium and come down. It's always important to actually show these mistakes. A lot of artists would say, no, I didn't make any mistakes. Actually, no artist would say that. A lot of people look at artwork and think, oh, you never make any mistakes. You do it so beautifully. But I just made a mistake. The difference is I noticed the mistake and I fixed it. Yeah. It still comes a little too far out of the head here, but that's okay. Because I'm just trying to get the point across. The hair, I didn't try to draw every single strand of hair. I didn't try to draw all these little loose things over here. You don't need them. They're not important. This right here is enough. It gets the idea across. Okay? So hair, the important thing, if you're drawing a face from scratch, the important thing, if you're drawing yourself or some character or some famous person, you want to get the hair to look like that person, whoever it is. If you're just making a person up, you have a lot of freedom, but that also means it's even more difficult because you don't have a reference to look at. So one of my suggestions would be to look at people's hair. Look around you at some people. Look online. Find some pictures of people. Look at your cell phone. Find some pictures of... I'm sure you got some music on your phone. You can look at the album covers, do a Google image search for famous people like, president portraits. There's, 50 something of them. And they all did portraits at many different angles and different styles. So you can find lots of great content. Once you've chosen what kind of hairstyle you want to do, find the most important parts of it. So, for example, if I was going to do my own hair, I personally have a bit of a widow's peak going on. My hair, my widow's peak should not be that low. This point right here is where my hairline would be if it wasn't receding. I have a receding hairline, so that is where the tip of my widow's peak is. It's not nearly that pronounced, but you get the idea. It's that little V shape. We call that a widow's peak. And then my hair comes down pretty smoothly. My hair is going to fill this area here. I do have maybe a little bit of some of this kind of stuff going on. But that all depends on how recently I've trimmed my hair, because right now when I'm drawing this, it's been a while since I've trimmed my hair, like a month or two, and it's starting to get really raggedy like this. But normally my hair is very closely cropped, and it actually does more of a standy-uppy thing. But mostly on my hair, there'd be a little bit of a sideburn there. And my hair would come out just a little bit from the cranium up at the top. And this line would probably be very similar. As a matter of fact, what I'm going to do here is erase everything but that little V for the widow's peak. And let's just roll with it. And the next kind of last thing we need to do, not necessarily last, but the next to last, the last part of the actual face, is we need to figure out these cheeks. And as we talked about early on with this guy, he's got these big round cheeks. I know I'm over pronouncing them here, but he's got these huge cheeks. Or in the case of myself, I don't have those cheek bones poking out. I just have big chubby cheeks. I'm a chubby guy. If I was looking at myself to draw a self-portrait, I got a lot of chubs coming out here. and multiple chins going on. Also, if I was drawing myself here, I'd have my glasses. I'd have rolls in my neck where my chubs are hanging around. At the moment, I would have a nice little t-shirt collar on because it's Christmas break, so I ain't wearing my nice school clothes. There's my shoulders. And if I go back and hide the construction, that's a decent enough representation of what I look like. Thanks for taking the time to learn with me today. I hope that you found all of my information here useful and that you'll have more success with your portrait drawing because of this video. As always, if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments below and I'll be happy to address them. And if you liked learning with me how to draw a portrait, I'm going to show one more video in this series. My next video is going to show the project that I do with my 6th graders each year, in which they create their own Time magazine cover with their portrait on the front as Person of the Year. It's a really great project that I've had really good success with. If you're a teacher like me and you want to use this lesson in your own classroom, feel free and let me know how it works out for you.